Good morning and welcome to Face the Nation. I'm John Dickerson. Breaking news this morning, 3 Americans, including Washington Post reporter Jason Rezaian, have departed Tehran, part of a prisoner exchange with Iran announced on the day sanctions were lifted on that country as a part of the Iranian nuclear deal. And this video shows 3 of the Iranians just released in Houston. This is a swap that's already sparked controversy on the campaign trail. And we start with former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, who is in Charleston this morning. Good morning, Secretary Clinton. After this prisoner exchange, Senator Marco Rubio said, quote, "If you take an American hostage, Barack Obama will cut a deal with you, whether it's Bo Bergdahl, what he did with the Castro brothers, and now what he's done with Iran." Your reaction to that?
Well, I think it's just typical political rhetoric, and it overlooks some very basic, important issues. Number one, we always try to get Americans back who are unjustly held. I certainly did when I was Secretary of State, and when I was a senator, I advocated for the Bush administration to do the same for people who had been unlawfully held in foreign countries. Secondly, the important news here is that the Iranian agreement to put a lid on the nuclear weapons program of Iran is being implemented. The Iranians have so far fulfilled their side of the bargain by destroying centrifuges, by shipping out 98% or so of their enriched uranium out of their country, even making one of their plutonium reactors under construction no longer able to be ever used because they poured cement into it. So the real issue here is if you're committed to making the world safer and to show strong American leadership, you have to engage in patient, persistent diplomacy with people who are not your friends. They are on the other side of a lot of the issues and values that you hold very dear, and that is certainly true for the United States.
Former FBI agent Robert Levinson is still in Iran. Do you believe that the Iranians know where he is? And if so, why wasn't he a part of this deal?
Well, I regret deeply that Bob Levinson was not on his way home either, and I hope and expect that the Iranians will continue to be pressed very, very hard to give up any information they have and, if possible, to return Bob Levinson to his home and family.
Switching to the topic of gun control, you've said Bernie Sanders should vote or support the idea of lifting the immunity block on gun manufacturers. He now says he'll support the legislation you've pushed him to. So hasn't he done what you wanted him to do?
Well, I am pleased that Senator Sanders has flip-flopped on legal immunity for gun makers and sellers. Now I hope he will also join members of Congress to change what's called the Charleston loophole. That enabled the killer in Charleston to get the gun that he used to murder 9 people at Bible study here in Mother Emanuel Church. That's something else Senator Sanders has supported that we need to change. So now I'm calling on him to also flip-flop in the right direction and sign on to legislation to change the Charleston loophole.
You had once, in 1993, when you were First Lady, supported in testimony in front of the Senate Finance Committee a 25% tax on guns. You're not supporting that now or promoting that now. How have you evolved over the years in terms of your support for the Second Amendment?
Oh, I do support the Second Amendment. That has always been understood. I just believe that, like any amendment to our Constitution, there are reasonable steps that can be taken. We have reasonable restrictions on certain kind of speech or certain forms of assembly. And for goodness sakes, we ought to be smart enough and do so and consistent with the Constitution to have more gun safety measures to try to save some of the 33,000 lives that we lose to gun violence every single year. This is something that I have spoken out about, that I have advocated for right now. I think there is a consensus in the country on comprehensive background checks, closing the gun show loophole, closing the online and Charleston loopholes, reversing the immunity given to the gun industry, certainly prohibiting would-be terrorists on the no-fly zone from buying guns. That's the kind of common sense approach that we should be working to achieve.
I'd like to ask you about these stories out of Flint, Michigan. Lead levels in the water have created an emergency there. Senator Sanders has called for Rick Snyder, the governor, to resign. What's your feeling?
Well, John, this is an issue I've been involved in now for a couple of weeks. I am horrified by what has happened in Flint. I started calling for immediate action, calling for federal intervention. I sent two of my top campaign aides to meet with the mayor of Flint. As you may know, I appeared on a show this past week and demanded that Governor Snyder ask for the help that Michigan needs to deal with the horrible consequences that children and their families are facing in Flint. And I saw that Governor Snyder turned around within 2 hours and finally asked for the help that he should have asked for some weeks ago. I don't want to get caught up in the political back and forth here. I want to help the people of Flint, and I particularly want a comprehensive health analysis of what's happened to these children. Lead is a poison. It destroys your brain. It interferes with your learning and your behavior. Whatever it takes for Michigan and the federal government to come together through FEMA, through Health and Human Services, the EPA, whatever it takes, we now have to fix the problem and help these kids, and especially their health and education development, probably for years to come.
On the topic of health care, back at the national level, your daughter, Chelsea Clinton, said that Senator Sanders' universal health care plan will dismantle Obamacare, dismantle Children's Health Insurance Program, and a series of other things it would dismantle. Isn't she and your campaign not taking into account that those things would be replaced by an actual plan that Senator Sanders has put forward?
Well, I think it's very confusing because he hasn't put forward a plan, and the only way we know what it is he's advocating for comes from looking at the 9 bills that he's introduced in the House and Senate and Congress. And in those bills, every kind of health care is rolled all up together and handed over to the states, which bear a financial responsibility to match what the federal government provides in order to administer health care. So it's not a traditional kind of single-payer system as I understand it. It is a state-based system, kind of similar to Medicaid, if you will. And I do think there are very legitimate questions that can be raised. And because we don't have an up-to-date plan from Senator Sanders, all of us are trying to figure out what it would mean for everybody to be put into that new system.
Well, Secretary Clinton, I know that will be debated this evening when you're on the stage with Senator Sanders. We thank you for being with us.
Great to talk to you again, John.